Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Nikki Harris. Nikki, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. It was my day off.
Oh, nice. Thank you for joining me on your day off. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having
Um,
me.
no, this is seriously an honor for me. But before we talk about why you're here, Nikki, I want the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Nikki is an indie horror director and screenwriter, as well as something super amazing. She runs a kids art center called the Paint Box. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the indie horror. Obviously, that big horror fan. What got you into directing and screenwriting?
I actually started writing horror stories when I was a kid, like a child. I would get in trouble actually in class for it because I would write really dark stuff and then share it at recess. But that was like how I made friends.
Right.
So I've always been doing that alongside like my love for like art and working with kids. So horror has been like a comfort to me since I was a kid. I absolutely love it.
I totally understand. And you talk about making friends as a kid through horror, and now with Paint Box, can you tell a little bit of people about the art school and what you guys do there?
Yeah, so Paintbox is a kids art center, like with art and play, like where a lot of people come with their kids to do art together, and then it's got like it's like a massive play space, and it's pretty retro. Everything inside it is like retro from like my childhood in the '80s. My arcade games are all old school, Pac-Man and like Space Invaders.
Yeah.
And we do like I'm the slime queen. So we do slime, a ton of slime, which kids of all ages, 99% of them like. There's always that 1% that's like, no thanks. But
Yeah.
we always do a lot of really fun art projects. So I'm excited. I love my job and it's a blast. And I can do it alongside like all the other hobbies that I have.
Well, I'll tell you this, my 10-year-old and 3-year-old would absolutely adore you because they are slime freaks. So they would love to see the slime queen. I'll tell you that right now. What gave you the inspiration to want to actually start doing, the art center? Like, what's something that really pushed you to go, you know what, this is something that I really think can be beneficial to the children in my community?
Well, I was a preschool director in San Francisco for a million years. And
You
I
look
started
very good for
Paintbox
your age.
there. Yeah. So I ran Paintbox there. I mean, kids and horror are like both of my two loves, right? So, and it's funny, a lot of people, like when I was a preschool teacher for them, didn't realize I made horror movies on the side.
Yeah.
And it was always like a surprise to them. But to me, it's just like, yeah. So I ran Paintbox as a preschool in San Francisco, and then I decided to make the big move to Rochester, New York, and I saw there was like a need for it here. Rochester is pretty big, and there's just every kind of family you can imagine here. Families they can look really different. There's a lot of different kinds of families. So I wanted to be able to like have an affordable place that everybody could afford to come to if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's been a great move. Everybody's been really welcoming to me here, and I just love it. And the kids are amazing.
That's the most important thing, is making sure that the kids are able to have that outlet to express their creativity, because
Yeah.
when you're a kid, the last thing that you need is somebody hampering your creativity. And when they have a place like Paintbox where they can go and really express themselves with their parents, that's something special that you're doing. I know that sometimes it can seem like a job, but you're doing something incredibly special in the lives of these kids. So please don't ever forget that. And if you guys want more information on any of the amazing things that Nikki does, all of her social media links are down in the description. So make sure that you are giving her a follow. Make sure you're keeping up because, like I said, not only does she do Paintbox, but she is a horror director and screenwriter. So you're going to see a lot more coming up from her in the future. But Nikki, in order for you to be a horror screenwriter, a horror director, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk
Mhm.
about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Nikki, your first horror movie was.
My very, very first one was Ghostbusters in theater when it came out. And yes, I'm
That is
like
so.
showing my age, but it was the first movie I ever saw in a theater. And it was, I mean, I actually remember it. And what's funny about my first memory of it is that I feel like when under age 5, all my memories are like less bright and colorful.
Mhm.
I don't know what, maybe our eyes change or something as we get older, but I remember this movie so well. But the two things that were vivid were like this one scene that popped out, like it was bright purple. And my mom and cousin still remember taking me to see the movie because I stood on my cousin's lap in a diaper and screamed with my arms up, like really excited for the movie about half the time. And I absolutely loved it. And I've probably seen it an unhealthy amount of times. I just put it on whenever I'm like having a hard day. I just play
Yeah.
it in the background, or I will put it on in the background and then end up sitting and watching it very closely, even though I've seen it so much.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, people say, "Oh, it's a horror comedy." Well, it's a comedy, yes, but it is a horror movie. Like you're talking about the purple. I can only imagine that's the scene with the librarian coming up.
Yes,
Just
it
a very
scared the
purple
crap
theme.
out of me in the best way because it wasn't like people think like when kids get scared, it's healthy for us to have all these feelings and to feel scared in an excited like a way that's like managed and we can like contain it. It's an exciting feeling. For me, it's like weird because it's horror is weirdly comforting to me.
Yeah,
I think because it's such an escape, right?
yeah.
It's so when you watch horror, you're not thinking about any of your problems or anything like that. You're just in it. And that, like, as a kid, it was thrilling to me. I'd never seen anything like it before. And then as I got older and watched it over and over again, knowing more things and like growing up, I saw so much more in it.
Yeah.
And sometimes even now, like sometimes I feel like there's still a surprise in it. I just think it's like the most perfect film ever.
Well, it's funny because we were talking about how it is a horror comedy. If you take out your main four guys, you had that Saturday Night Live troupe right there, and you replace them with other non-comedic actors, this is strictly a horror movie. But no one can deliver lines like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd.
Hey, where these stairs go? They go up.
I will never not laugh at that clip. Where do these stairs go? They go up. That's another thing with this movie that the comedy just really lands. But like the scene you were talking about, like with the librarian, get her and she pops up and she's an actual monster. Absolutely terrifying. So, do you remember, Nikki, which scene it was that affected you the most from Ghostbusters?
Well, actually, it wasn't the library scene. That's the first one I remember, but the one that affected me most was the eggs in the fridge when she opens the fridge door, like the egg when she has the eggs out on the counter. I mean, they start popping. Like that was like, I don't know. I had like kind of a little fear of eggs for a little while after that, which is I was little, so I mean, and I was weird, but I was like also afraid of grass. But um, that was just I don't know. That was really cool. But also, like, what comes to mind is like just her in that chair when she's still like Sigourney Weaver, like the wind is all blowing and like she's in that red dress. I was like, I want to be her. She's like
Mhm.
scary and awesome. And like, it was really cool. I always think of
Right.
that too.
It's funny because that moment right before that, when she's sitting in the chair and Zool, they all start coming up out of the chair and grabbing her face, and the chair gets sucked back. That's another moment that genuinely scared the shit out of me as a kid. So there are so many moments in this movie that are just super effective and super scary, especially at a young age. But now I gotta know, we talked about what scene scared you the most, what scene affected you the most. But what would you say your favorite scene from Ghostbusters is?
My favorite one. Oh my God. I think I like when Zool steps out for the first time. I actually always thought that was Sigourney Weaver in makeup. I didn't realize it was like some like Russian ballerina or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, because I mean, she looked so much like her. But when she stepped out looking so beautiful and scary, I was like, that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
don't
there's a
blame.
lot of funny moments, but that was cool.
Well, and in the world of Ghostbusters now, we do have four films. You got the first two, you have the female-led reboot, and then you have Ghostbusters Afterlife. So now we are more than a franchise. Which movie in the Ghostbusters franchise would you say is your favorite?
I like all of them, to be honest. Probably my first is my favorite. I do actually, and this would surprise people, my second favorite is actually the all female led one.
Mhm.
And then my third one would be Afterlife, and the fourth would be the second one. I still love the second one. It's just,
One of them's got to be the least favorite.
yeah,
Which is
yeah,
funny because I don't hate the female-led Ghostbusters. I don't.
yeah.
My problem with that movie is not the fact that it's a
It's
female cast. I
different
think they're
though.
fucking brilliant. Like I think that they did a great job. Everything they did was awesome. But where the other three were like horror first and comedy second, That one was definitely comedy first and horror second. But
Yeah.
again, it's still a I own it. I love the film. I've watched it more than
Yeah.
once.
Well, it's like
Um,
more the family friendly for sure.
yes.
They weren't like, and I do think that if I would change that, I wouldn't actually have anybody, the other Ghostbusters have cameos in it because I felt like it was its own separate
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. I would get rid of their cameo, and I also would make sure that Hemsworth didn't have an Australian accent when he's possessed because he shouldn't have an accent if he's a different person. That bothers me to this day.
But it's still
That's
like
it. Everything else is great.
a lot of the moments in that film genuinely made me laugh out loud. So I completely agree
Oh my
with
gosh,
there.
they were hysterical. You could tell they had so much fun making it, which is what made the first Ghostbusters so good. I mean, like you could tell they were definitely having moments where they had fun too. I'm sure there was like a lot of stress behind the scenes too, but you could tell they genuinely had fun.
Yeah. And like you were talking about Afterlife, I openly wept watching Afterlife in the
Yeah.
cinema. Like
I was mad when people were so mean about that. I was like, you guys, that was like a moment. Don't even start. You don't even know. That was such a moment when we see his, spoiler alert, ghost. I'm like,
I was weeping in the theater. When he was like, "I miss you, my friend," I was like, "That's not."
but that's his real like that's how he really feels though,
Yes. I was like, that is not Venkman talking to Ziggy. Like that's a real moment right there. So like that was something that I openly just thought was super fantastic about that film. And I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of all the Ghostbuster films. So I could talk about these all day, but we know Ghostbusters was your first horror film, Nicki, and that's what started horror for you. But now I want to throw a little bit of a curveball here at you for a second. My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Nicki? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Poltergeist, the original.
Yes, yes,
Yay.
yes, yes.
I've seen
So
it, so I watch it obsessively to this day.
it's a movie that I would say it's probably in the top 3 PG horror movies of all time.
It's
Um,
perfect. It's so
it is.
perfect. And I'm really sorry about the curse on all the cast and crew, but you guys made a perfect movie.
Have you watched the Cursed Film Show on Shudder?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing is, a lot of that stuff I knew already because I'm one of those people that I read every weird thing there is, every autobiography, every book. Oh my God, I read everything. So all those little things. But that was still really interesting to like see that stuff. And one of the things that I had just learned a few years ago was I didn't realize that 2 of the bodies in the pool were actually real skeletons. And I just thought that was awesome. And like, no wonder the actress didn't, I was so mad about that, shooting that scene. But it was just, I mean, after like it was already good before knowing that, but then watching the movie again and watching that scene and being like, those are real skeletons. It's like, that's badass.
Yeah, that's fucking legit. I can't praise Cursed Films on Shudder enough. One thing I love about that
And they
is you
did
do
the
get a lot of
Omen
it.
too.
Yeah, you get a lot of the in-depth behind the scenes about Poltergeist 3 and how they wish they could go back and redo things and make the ending better for Heather's memory. Yeah, I can't recommend that enough. If you guys haven't seen Cursed Films on Shudder, make sure you're checking that out because it's a beautiful, beautiful. The whole thing is just honoring Heather O'Rourke. The episode of Poltergeist is honoring her and her memory and her legacy. So I can't recommend that enough to you guys. Now, I want to bounce back to Ghostbusters here for a second. Obviously, the franchise is still going, and at the time of recording, we have 4 films, and we have another one coming out this year. What is your excitement level for the new film coming out later this year?
Well, let's see. When Afterlife came out, I saw it on the day it opened, and I brought a bunch of kids with me. I was like an adult sitting in a theater with like all these 9-year-olds, and I was like, "You guys, this is serious. You need to sit still." Of course, I went to the bathroom like 8 times.
Sure.
So it's a movie that I don't go to the theater like almost ever. And that when like the Afterlife came out, I went to the theater, and I will go to the theater for the new Scream one too. But that's a movie that I'll go to the theater for. If a new Ghostbusters comes out, I will go to the theater.
Yeah. I'm with you.
That's like where my excitement comes. That's the way it's got to go. I've got to see it in the theater. And it probably, I don't think they could really like, because I love Ghostbusters so much, it would have to be so horrible for me to not like it. You know,
I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I'm like, I think it's, I mean, whatever I'm excited for any new content, anything new related to it.
Right. I'll tell you this, anytime that they're going to put on proton packs, I'll be there watching because I
Yes.
absolutely adore the franchise. So, Nicki, it's amazing being able to talk to you and learn about how horror started for you and some of your favorite horror moments. And I do want to remind everybody, I have all of Nicki's social media links down in the description. So make sure you're giving her a follow on all her social media. But before I let you go, Nicki, we always bounce back and I ask you one last question. I think I know the answer, but I still got to ask. We're going to go back to Ghostbusters. And what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking Ghostbusters on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Nicki, what would your ranking of Ghostbusters be?
For how it affected me?
Yes.
I mean, full on. I really think like I can't even imagine that I would even be the same person otherwise, because that literally got me into that stuff as a kid and it never stopped.
I know. And usually the first usually is like that, whether it's a good affection or a bad way that it affected us, there's always that severe memory. And maybe without Ghostbusters, you wouldn't be the person that you are today. I know without House 1986, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So
yeah,
I can say
that
that
one's
for
crazy.
I love that film.
Is that
And that
your
was my
very
first.
favorite one? Your number one?
Oh
Yeah.
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 Yep. I
That
don't think
one's
anything.
amazing. You can't remake that one either. Like it
No.
could never be like that.
And like it's funny because like that was my first horror movie. There's other horror movies that have obviously scared me more or affected me more, but House will always be my favorite. I could literally put that movie on any time of the day, watch it, and just absolutely adore it. So,
Yeah.
Nicki,
Isn't that the
thank you again.
poster with the is that the movie poster with the hand on the doorknob? It's like the zombie hand, like the ghost hand. Or
Ding dong, you're dead.
Yeah, I love that poster.
No, it's funny because I've talked about this before. Like I was very blessed. I grew up in a video store. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
YouTube for us back then was walking up and down the aisles, looking at the cover arts, trying to see which one jumped out to us the most. And, my grandma, it's funny enough, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Rocky, and Ghostbusters is all I would watch growing up. I got to be about 5, 6, 7, and my grandma was finally like, you know what? We're going to pick out a different movie today. And so I remember just walking up and down the aisles and seeing that Ding Dong, You're Dead. And I was like, I want to watch that.
It's such a good poster. It works, right?
Mm-hmm. It definitely worked for me back then.
And
so
they let you watch that?
Oh yeah. My grandma watched that with me. Me and my grandma would literally
your grandma sounds amazing.
Oh, my grandma was the shit. We would literally play house and like we would go to the closet and I'd be like, we're gonna open it at exactly 12 o'clock. And then we'd open it and act like a monster came out and start running around the house. Like that was us playing when I was like 5 years old.
Oh my God, coolest grandma ever.
Yeah, she's dope as hell. So Nicki, please, like I said, don't go anywhere. I do have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment on the video. It really does help us with that cringy YouTube algorithm. And until next time, guys, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.